I am Dr. Sora Jubitsky, and I'm here again with my friend Carol, and we're having our biweekly talks about sex. This website is called Let's Talk Sex Official Birds, Bees, and Beyond. And tonight's topic is sexual dysfunction.
Hi, my name is Gato, and I'm a student at Florida International University, and I'm studying psychology, and I'm partnering here with Dr. Sora Dubitsky. And today she's going to tell us a little bit about sexual dysfunction, ways to cure it naturally without medications, because unfortunately, I've recently learned that a lot of medications come with side effects that can actually put your libido down or affect your testosterone levels, unfortunately, which a lot of our doctors don't tell us about. So I want to bring us here today so that we can talk about the ways that sexual dysfunction happens, different circumstances in how to approach sexual dysfunction, both within yourself and with your partner. So without further ado, Dr. Sora, if you want to lead us into this conversation.
Sure, and we'll stop and discuss, but I will start with a joke. So the joke is a 90-year-old man bursts into a church and he bursts into the church confession booth and he's out of breath and he says, Father, Father, I just spent the whole night making love to an 18-year-old woman. And the priest is stunned and he says, okay, for your penance, you have to say 12 Our Fathers and 7 Hail Marys. And the old man says, well, why would I do that? I'm Jewish. And the priest says, well, then why are you telling me? And the old man exclaims, telling you, I'm telling everyone. Which to me demonstrates, this national pervasive obsession we have with erectile dysfunction. And it can be serious and it can impede people's lives and people's pleasure. And it just seems with the number of Viagra commercials and Cialis commercials and what were some of the new ones, Roman, be Roman ready. We've made erectile dysfunction seem like it's ubiquitous, it's all over. And it's as bad, if I'm exaggerating, forgive me, but it's like this national disease. If somebody came from another planet, it's like, what's the worst disease you have on this planet? It wouldn't be heart disease, which kills the most number of people. Heart disease or cancer would be ED. Look at all the commercials they have for products trying to fix ED. And a lot of ED is caused by psychology, and in particular, stress.
Definitely.
And, stress is a major factor. Stress can lower testosterone. One of the things it does, it leads blood away from the reproductive organs and it sends the blood to the heart. We don't need reproduction for personal survival. We have all these cultural pressures about stress. What does sexual function look like? Desire disorders, meaning there's no interest. And this affects women as well. The problem so much isn't that this occurs. The problem is that when it occurs, it's cause for worry. Either you're less of a man or you're less of a woman. I think of Frankie and Grace, the Netflix show. The two women, they're in their 70s, supposedly Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, and they invented lube
Hmm. Would you look at that?
on the TV show.
I
They,
haven't seen it. I mean, I've seen ads on it, but I haven't actually seen the show in itself, so it's funny to hear it from your perspective.
they invent their own kind of lube, and maybe they also invented a vibrator, and I don't quote me on that.
Hmm.
I'm trying to remember, but the lube definitely. And desire to feel sexual amongst women, whom, especially as they get older, the walls of the vagina thin, it might hurt, but there was an outcry for a drug for women to increase their libido, similar to what Viagra does. Viagra increases the likelihood of an erection. So women wanted that, and pharmaceutical companies responded. They came out with a drug called flibanserin, supposedly increased libido, increased desire. So there's been studies about it. There's this anecdote about this, a clinical trial. So a woman goes into a clinical trial, placebo study. So women were enrolled and part of the group was given a placebo that does nothing, sugar pill. And the other half of the group took flibanserin. And in this anecdote, this woman who was in the clinical trial started taking her drug and she went crazy. She had the best sex she ever had. She hadn't felt that sexual and desirable and orgasmic since she was a young woman. And it turned out she was in the placebo group.
Hmm.
Hmm. So what does that say? It says that part of sexual dysfunction, there is an aspect or part of sexual function that is psychological.
Definitely. I mean, like you say
Definitely.
yourself, with the stress and all the anxiety from performing well, I can see a lot in men, like how they could feel like upset or nervous or stressed out about the fact, if like they have erectile dysfunction and they can't properly perform during sex. They may feel very bad about themselves. And like you say, just to clarify your message, that a woman may blame herself for not being sexy enough
Hmm.
or not
Right.
feeling pretty enough to turn them on. So that just
Right.
all may make both people like during sex feel like bad about themselves when in reality, you shouldn't feel bad about yourself. You should simply go towards retracing your steps, going back to the foreplay, going back
Hmm.
to the emotional connection that you build before sex. Overall, as well, just understanding each other and understanding that some of these things aren't really in your control.
There are disorders, sexual disorders grouped differently. So desire disorders, you have no desire. You just, no libido, and that could be due to hormonal changes, illness, mental health struggles, relationships, excitement disorders, which is where ED comes in. It could involve trouble becoming physically aroused. Again, hormonal imbalances, cardiovascular health, and side effects of medications. And that's such a big deal. And I don't know that doctors are talking about that. Antidepressants lower libido, blood pressure medications, beta blockers, they reduce blood flow, which can lead to erectile dysfunction. Birth control pills in women, when we've spoken about birth control pills, they can lower libido in women, pain medication, absence of desire, talk to a medical doctor.
Right.
But also, you might want to talk to a psychologist because some of these conditions are psychological, like the woman who had this i- outstanding, this enormous, reaction just by taking a placebo. There was psychology involved. Another factor is cultural. Some sexual dysfunction is less about biology and more about the messages we absorb. And our culture is very, very focused on sexual functioning. What happens if a woman is with a man and he doesn't get aroused? Historically, women aren't even in this culture. Women aren't even supposed to be sexual. The birth control pill changed that. Women do have a strong sexual desire, and they did before the pill, but the pill allowed them to have more agency in expressing their sexuality. They were like the monitors of restraint in sexual encounters. But since the 1960s, we have found women have strong libido as men. Having an aversion to sex, arousal disorders, difficulty becoming physically aroused, difficulty obtaining an erection, lubrication issues for women. It's just a natural function of aging. The way the human body's constructed, we reach our reproductive peak like in our 20s and 30s, and then it starts diminishing. Modern science, modern technology, we have ways of staving that off. There are many, many causes for ED. Like what we're focused on are psychological or lifestyle factors, alcohol and substance abuse, poor sleep, lack of exercise, smoking, aging, natural changes in blood flow, and nerve sensitivity. The healthier you stay, the more likely it is that your sexual functioning will not diminish maybe as much. Health is correlated with sexual functioning. Relationship factors are really important. Unresolved conflicts, communication, resentment, attachment styles, what messages you were given about sex when you were a child.
You know, when I took your class, I remember you asking the same question, like, how did we find out about sex truly?
Hmm.
For me, it was from my grandmother, actually. And she told it to me in a way that was very similar to your perspective on sex. Just very much seen like from an emotional perspective and role play and the sensuality of it, not just
Hmm.
straight to the PIV, penis and vagina.
Hmm.
So I admire that, because a lot of the time I think like boys they see porn and they're like, yep, that's what sex is. So that's exactly what I have to do. And then it turns out just being ignorant.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Unrealistic expectations, porn, that idea treats sex like an object, objectification. That person is there to fill your needs. This is primarily, heterosexual um, relationships we're talking about. But boys, because of porn, they expect women to, love giving blowjobs. They expect women to love anal sex.
and endless moaning. Again, unrealistic things.
Unrealistic, yeah. Some of the things that we could do psychologically. First thing is sensate focus. This was a technique created by Masters and Johnson. So this was like in the 1950s, around 1960. And what sensate focus is just that. It has you focus on the five senses and experiencing pleasure rather than having a goal of orgasm. Like rushing through it just to get to the Big Bang or the Big O,
Right.
but instead, focusing on taste, touch, smell, hearing, vision, setting up, a more of a romantic room, lighting incense, playing your favorite music, to have the experience being a sensory experience, cognitive behavioral therapy. What do you tell yourself about sex? That you have to perform, that you have to be sexy, you have to please someone. So that's what CBT does, cognitive behavioral therapy does. It makes you look at what your thoughts are about this, and then you deal with the thoughts and strive to change your mind about what you think the purpose of sex even is. There's mindfulness based approaches. Instead of the focus being on prowess, have the focus become presence. In the present moment, you're naturally engaging that sensitivity and the sensuality.
When you do EMDR, normally it becomes almost like a hypnotic process, I would say. So you usually start with patting some part of your body in like a give and take form or like a clockwork form, like tick
Mm,
tock, tick tock. Some people do it on their shoulders, some people do it on their thighs,
mhm.
and they try to focus on their senses. And just being very present in the moment. Usually, you try to be like in an isolated area with minimal noises so you can just truly focus on what you're doing. In the sense of sexual dysfunction, I can imagine that EMDR takes a vision into maybe a moment where that person was having sex and they felt under pressure, stressed out, or as if they didn't perform well enough.
Mm,
So they may go back to that thought and replace the thought of feeling guilty about themselves into feeling acceptance for themselves or apologizing to themselves for putting so much shame on themselves for not performing well enough or for not doing it the right way, quote unquote. Because a lot of the time people think that they may have a problem, but realistically, it's just, us in our own heads having conflict with ourselves because we don't
mhm,
think we're good enough, or, what if I don't smell good, or what if she doesn't
mhm.
like this? It's like so many things coming up at the same time. And that's why I always go back to the same thing. Communication in sex is so important. And it's not that it's unattractive or it's annoying, because if the person thinks so, then they're definitely not mature enough to have sex. Because the whole point of sex is to be able to have that communication with a partner and be able to have that connection that is supposed to be special.
Being able to say what you want and what you need is an important aspect of having good sex or good sexual relations. Is an important aspect of any relationship. So one thing I laugh at is why why the fixation? Maybe it's just my TV that gets these commercials. Some guy named Bob, he goes into his office and he's got a big grin on his face. It's like, oh, what happened to you, Bob? And my image is like the Olympics. There's ice dancers at the Olympics, and at the end of the performance, the judges hold up a card that says, what their score was. That's what I think of when I hear about performance. Because sex isn't about performance. It's about presence. It's about pleasure. You and your partner and climbing to the heights of transcendence, or, the heights of ecstasy, two become one. It could be a very mystical experience. And in order to have that experience, you kind of let go of a lot of these, blocks, and enjoy the present moment rather than, how am I doing? Am I measuring up to your other lovers? If you are having problems, yes, talk to a doctor, talk to your partner, maybe see a therapist, pick up a couple of books, about ED and about some treatments. The ads I laugh at are the ones where, there's women who are just voluptuous and semi-clad, just like oozing or dripping sexuality, and they're the ones selling this product. Take it with a grain of salt
Of
that this product might not be all that it's cracked up to be, and then there's other ways of managing it. Thank you for the conversation.
course. Thank you for the information that you provided us. I, as always, think that these conversations are always very insightful to almost anyone because, again, sex is part of our world. And if we don't treat it correctly, then we're just going to corrupt it. And sooner or later, we're going to lose
Right.
the true meaning of it, you know?
So we'll have some more videos coming up. If you like this, please subscribe, please like, please share with your friends. I believe one of the shortcomings of the US is that we just do not provide adequate sex education.
Right.
And that's why we're here to, let's talk sex official.
To give all the information we know. But yeah, if you have any suggestions for any other videos we should do, please leave them in the comments down below. And as always, consent is sexy, and conversation is sexy too.
Very good. Thank you guys for tuning in. Yeah,
Bye.
we love you. Bye.